Tara Christie, President and CEO of Banyan Gold Corp. Banyan has our AurMac project located in the Yukon, 7 million ounces, low strip ratio, starting right on surface with roads and power already on the property. We are have an exciting year for 2025, on the cusp of a resource update. We're going to put out a PEA. This project is really exciting because we think it's got lots of potential to continue to grow. So it's an exciting story, and I'm happy to give you an update, Matthew.
Sorry, lovely to see you again. Lovely to see you again. Right, we had a good year last year. I think Banyan had a good year last year. Started to understand, what was happening underground and how to get after it. And I think you've proved that point with the press release which came out today. Do you want to talk us through that?
Yeah, so that was some more holes from our Powerline deposit. Over the course of the results that we've put out, we've really defined areas of high grade within that, what are our starter pit areas. And you can see that in the heat map of grades that we've put out. Really has changed the profile of that deposit from how it was perceived last year. And then the holes between Airstrip and Powerline, where we're seeing, 32 meters of 1.6, so consistent higher grade in a large area between Powerline and Airstrip, which we simply haven't drilled off, which could substantially change the profile of the deposit and what it looks like as we move forward in pre-development here.
Okay, obviously these grades, compared to the historic grades, it does change the profile potentially of the company, but it also, I think, potentially also helps you understand how you get after this PEA, because the grades are a step up.
Yeah, well, some of those aren't going to make it into the resource update or the PEA, particularly between Powerline and Airstrip. And the date of our PEA is being driven right now by our agreement to earn 100%. So, if we'd had more time and drilled out some more, yeah. So it is a bit of a stepping stone. Both the resource and the PEA that we put out will be a snapshot of the project right now. We know we continue to improve it with some more drilling, which you usually can. This is far from drilled off, this deposit. Lots of room to grow. I arm wave and give me 50 more holes and I can probably get it close to 10 million ounces. It's pretty exciting when you look at it. Have we found the best yet? Have we found our intrusion yet? No. And here we are. It's only 5 years since we've really made our discovery, and we're already at 7 million ounces. That's pretty rapid progression.
It is. I know you're sitting on a lot of ounces at the moment, but the type of ounces is important to understand. So if I may get clarity on this sort of interim resource and this interim PEA balance against the need to secure the 100%, because that's, I guess, what the agreement says. So, and it can be a kind of interesting time, because if the market doesn't understand this interim component to resource and PEA, they may judge you. So how do you manage that?
These are great gold prices for it. So the PEA, I'm not saying it's I'm saying it's probably going to be pretty exciting, but it's not going to be all that there is for Banyan, because we know we can continue to grow it. And it's logical for the Powerline and Airstrip deposits, if they connect, then you'd have one larger pit rather than two. So you change the project as you continue to drill. I think it's a great year for this. Gold price is pretty amazing. I think most of us have waited our whole careers for these gold prices. Today in Canadian dollars, $4,100. That's for people with a lot of ounces in a jurisdiction where you can permit mines, and there's mine right beside us. And last year, people say, well, why didn't you drill more last year? Well, remember, we had some headwinds that were completely unrelated to us but affected us. So we tapered back our program a little bit to make sure that we were funded for 2025, which looking like it was a good strategy, because now we're sitting in 2025 with a strong treasury, an action plan to get ourselves through the year with some key milestones and room to get out and drill and show people. So I think the drilling itself will be able to show people with what we've planned for this year that there's more beyond what's going to go into the PEA, because the cutoff had to be the drilling from last year. Otherwise, we won't make the deadline, right? So I think that's a great strategy. You never really want to go and have your PEA and have, that's it, there's no more. That's not necessarily a recipe for excitement, but being able to say, here's a snapshot, we think it's pretty fabulous, but there's more.
There's more and it's better and it's higher grade. But but at this moment in time, it's just about securing that 100%. That's what you're focused on. Because I think you've talked in the past about a larger mining pit between Powerline and Airstrip. But did you expect to see grades like this? And obviously that says to me that perhaps whatever comes out in the PA is obviously not where we're going to end up. But how did you get after it? This new data coming through, how are you going to get after in terms of future modeling, in terms of where you drill?
Well, that's a big part of what my team is doing right now, bringing in some experts, as well as, we've got great advisors like Henry Marsden from Yamana, and our team. We're taking all this data as we get these results and modeling it, and developing targets. And then you got to have the debate, what are the best targets? What's going to generate the most excitement? And such problems to have. We have to make some choices about what we drill and how we're going to demonstrate the excitement and the potential for this project to grow with higher grade, which I think is what's really important.
Right. I mean, you obviously, the recent drilling, this came off, largely unexplored land package. How much more is there to get after?
A lot. And that's why we flew a ZTEM survey last year, and we did some 3D geophysics with what we know about our geological model, because that helps you calibrate what you're seeing. And that's another big part of what our team has to discuss is what are we seeing here, and how do we, I kind of look at it, how do we improve our odds of success? So our approach to exploration is we put together plans on what we think would achieve various goals. And, you said, okay, if we just want to add ounces, if we want to add high grade, if we want to step out and test some of these targets, and then we bring all that together into a team meeting and we go through, each one, what are the pros and cons, what are the odds of success? And it's always good to have options and really think about what are your odds of success. And that's how you really optimize it. And you get other eyes on it and go, well, look at this, even seeing that, these high grade zones, there's a correlation and how we're changing our geological model based on last year's drilling. I think we're really on. We said this is exactly what we said we were going to do. We wanted to drill out the core where we could see these higher grade trends and change the profile of that and change our geological model to give people more confidence in the resource that we have. I think we've done that in spades, and that's something that Banyan does. We really like to take our time to make sure we go through what our program's going to be and then deliver on what we said we were going to do.
Okay, so I mean, given you're going to work out what specific targets you're going to get after in 2025, looking at the data that you put out today, we've got an intrusion-related gold system model in play, previously, and this is all kind of quite shallow. I think it's quite reasonably shallow. Do you think there's scope for like higher grade underground potential at depth?
Oh, absolutely. And, that's a key thing. Once we get the new resource, if you have a big flat bottom pit and you have high grade at the bottom, it's really easy to drill some deep holes to add ounces in the pit that will actually make it in, because your stripping ratio becomes lower in the bottom of the pit. So that's something that we'll do once we get our new resource. But again, we've drilled one deep hole down to 650 meters and it was mineralized all the way down. And, it's probably worth drilling 3 or 4 deep holes to show that mineralization goes to depth over a larger area, even if it's not necessarily higher grade. Because once you build your mill on your mine plan, which is somewhere between 10 and 15 years probably, different companies, that's different sizes. So that deeper mineralization doesn't get mined if in a mine for like 20, 30 years down the road, right? But it is there, and a large company looks at that and goes, wow, that's a very large mineral endowment. It will be mined for a long time. It's worth it for us, big mining company, to invest in that, because that mine will run for a long time. We're investing in a community, our corporate our community relations. Those are the kind of projects that are very appealing to big companies.
Right. And okay, so more information around how you're getting after this exploration to come. Okay, understand that. And there are a few other things that I guess I want to understand related to timing. So the PEA, we're talking about PEA, but in terms of engineering milestones, etc., what are the kind of long poles in the tent which is going to drive the timing?
So we've already done a lot of work on our previous resource. So, we did some scoping study work. We've done 2 rounds of optimization already in engineering. So really, we're just waiting for the next resource update in Q2 before we, because we'll base our PEA on that next resource that we have here in 2025. And then, so we've already done a lot of key steps there, and we've got a pretty good idea of the direction that we think we're going to go. But again, got to wait for the resource.
Right. Okay. And then so looking to the future, looking at obviously, Victoria Gold we're mining successfully up the road. So last year we got Heckler as well. So in terms of the kind of issues with permitting pathways, and environmental hurdles to doing business in the region, any reason to believe that that's going to be problematic?
I think permitting any project in North America is already pretty challenging. You need to get all your ducks in the row, and that's going to be a good thing. The best information, the best science and engineering goes into your permitting. Making sure that you're communicating that and have credibility with the community and the First Nation is key in every project, and it'll be no different here. We aren't envisioning a heap leach project, so certainly that changes some of the optics around permitting. We haven't got a final project or design yet to communicate, but we are looking at various mill options. And I think this district has so much endowment of gold. There are some synergies with some of the assets of Victoria Gold, like the Raven deposit, which, is just across the valley from us. There's some synergies with others in the district, Sitka. There will be a mill built somewhere in this district, just looking at the endowment of gold, particularly in this type of a gold market. So, we're making sure that we're doing the right steps to do the baseline data, and we do have a huge amount of baseline data. We increased that in last year in response to some of the concerns that we heard. We added things that we knew were important to the First Nation, and we'd heard about that. So, I think we've done the right things. We're ready to engage and discuss the key environmental aspects and what we're doing on this project, and they're pretty well known. So, that in itself is an advantage in that, hey, we know what the big discussion points are going to be, and you're going to have the difficult conversations on any permitting of a project. So, we just have a bit more of a heads up on what they're going to be.
Okay, and with regards to the support from the province, obviously, lots of lessons learned in the last, 18 months, 24 months, etc. So things like, access to and use of existing roads or building of new roads and power, etc. Is that something that the province will engage with, or is it going to be incumbent on the companies operating in the area to kind of look after themselves?
Well, we've seen the government, the federal and the territorial government, have partnered on a study to connect the Yukon grid to the BC grid. So that's, they are doing work to support the broader industry and the Yukon generally, because the power grid in the Yukon needs additional power. So, and we've seen them working with First Nation development corps as well on various infrastructure pieces, including conversations around power. They maybe haven't gone that far yet, but that's really positive. For us, we've already got power lines on the property and existing roads. So we're not dealing with, a pristine area where we've got to find a path for a new road into the area. So, that can be a challenging conversation and takes an awful lot of background work. So I think that's a real advantage for us to already have. We even have cell phone service on the property. So that type of infrastructure, particularly the power lines already on the property, is a huge advantage.
Okay. Let's look at valuations, right? We've recently done a kind of little peer analysis on the Canadian developer community. There's a lot of them. There's a lot of them with 5 million ounces, and they are not getting a lot of love in terms of the stock market. I think maybe that's a kind of broader problem for the market. But that creates challenges when it comes to financing. It creates challenges in terms of there's a lot of optionality there for funders. Things like, well, we can pick the best ones. Some are better than others. So how do you kind of set yourself up in terms of standing out from the crowd? Are all ounces built equal?
No, and that was exactly why we focused on our higher grade ounces this year within the starter pit, because those are what drive your economics. And I think we've got to rebrand ourselves a little bit. And I think we will with this updated resource. People might start to look at us a little differently, and the scale. I remember when I started in this business, 1 million ounces used to be significant. And then it was like, no, majors aren't interested till you get 5 million. Well, now I hear it's 8. So we're at 7. So now we got to get over the threshold of 8, and then maybe the bar will move again and it'll be 10. But there are a lot of projects, and when you have lower grades and a large, you've got to find a way to really show that the economics of your project and the longevity when you've got that number of ounces are really superior to people's perceptions and grade. So I think we've got the ability to move beyond that, and we've certainly got a strategy for this year. And thankfully, we have funding. And that was, last year we made a strategic decision to pause or slow down our program, slow down our burn to come into 2025 and be able to execute on our plan. And I think that, and you have to do that when you have external factors like what happened to us. And I think that now things are starting to improve. The sentiment towards mining, particularly in the Yukon, people understand that we really need that to drive the Yukon's economy. We've seen some pretty major impacts on the territorial budget for health and schools. And so that's something that I think will get positive sentiment to companies that are doing things right, and we're trying to do things right and move our project forward.
Yeah, and I think it's just, I just want to kind of stick with this. How do you position yourself in the market? And maybe there's a Banyan 2.0 story emerging here, which is, I guess, exciting and differentiated in that sense. But your share register must help. If I look at some of the names that you've got, I don't know whether you classify them as strategic investors or potential future partners or takeover companies. I mean, how do you view that at the moment? What it's doing for you?
Well, I'm pretty thankful that we have some long-term institutional shareholders that believe in the price of gold, believe in projects, with Franklin Fidelity, and there's probably about 12 other long-term institutional shareholders in our registry. Cisco Development, they understand mining and mineral development, so certainly they're a great, strong shareholder. I'm personally a large shareholder, and I'm patient. This has been it's been a challenging last year, but now I think we're pretty well set up for this year. So I'm even more confident in our path forward. And yes, we might as well talk about the elephant, that block that the receiver has. We communicate very regularly with them. They've told us they're going to tell us. I'm not getting the sense there's any urgency. I'm pretty sure they're seeing the price of gold doing what it's doing. People's share prices increasing, and they want to get value. So are they in a rush to sell it? I don't think so. But I do know lots of places and interest in that block and where it goes. And not everybody will get a piece of that block when and if it gets sold. But there are lots of rumors around the Yukon about what's happening and people that are interested in the assets that are there. So, there is still a lot of potential for things to happen that are really positive for the jurisdiction and for us.
I mean, obviously the smart thing to do would be, to offload it to a friendly party and not damage the company, because it's a potential overhang if it's done in the worst possible way. But
they won't do that. They've got an obligation, and everybody knows about it.
Yeah. Okay. So look, and plus you've got enough strong hands to be able to kind of pick that up if and when they decide to. Managed is what I'm asking. Would it be a managed process?
Oh, absolutely. And they've said that even in their court documents. They interviewed various parties for it, but they haven't been moving forward very quickly on it. So I think they've got an obligation to understand how to get value. So, and people say, "Oh, it's going to be an overhang." I'm like, well, do you think that in this market we wouldn't be able to sell that block? We've been preparing for that for a long time.
Okay. Do you think in this market that companies are more likely, because we've seen companies having to do extraordinarily different things to get funded. I know you've got money now, but at some point you're going to go through various kind of capital raises into the future. Do you think that the market's a very different place now from, say, 5 years ago when it comes to access to capital, the type of capital, the cost of that capital?
I think our shareholders and our traditional sources of capital are still there when we need that. We've been very patient and careful with our money because we really wanted to get past some of this noise. I haven't seen a lot of non-traditional capital yet, but we get a lot of calls from people that have not invested in gold before. So that is a marked change. Doesn't mean that I know they've put money in or not yet, but a lot more interest from people that were more generalists. So I think it is changing. The gold price has changed pretty significantly. If people aren't paying attention and starting to change their investment, then they're not aware of what's going on in the world. And, we've had all kinds of drama with what's happened in the US, and I think there'll continue to be some, but there are some pretty strong trends in metals, which investors are going to start having to pay attention to. And even the mainstream money managers that normally just tell you to invest in blue chip stocks, I think will probably have to start taking a look at metals.
Yeah, they're really starting to move, and I think there's been real issues with exploration companies getting funded to be able to make the discoveries that may be developed, which then maybe get into production. There's a break in the system somewhat. So yeah, it feels like we're going to run out of a lot of this stuff soon. But gold, $2,800. Wow. Yeah, wow. For say, beginning of last year, 24, it was like 2,000, right? So thereabouts. The point is, it's shot up quite high, quite quickly. Is it sustainable? Does it need to be at those levels for companies like you to be attractive?
I don't think so. I don't personally think that we've hit a top in gold, but that this is a ceiling anyway. It's obviously an all-time high. Does it need to be? No, I think there's an awful lot of projects there where, prices, 28's great, but the 3-year trailing average is maybe 21, 22. And that's where people will be doing their economics, is at that 3-year average price. So, that's going to be the telling thing, is what do projects look like when we adjust them even to where that 3-year average, never mind the highs of today. And then you can see the upside with the higher prices. And you're talking heads all across the spectrum of whether gold's going to come back down, gold's going to go to even higher highs. What matters is your project economic at the range of gold prices, which are reasonable to use in a current study. You have to be so careful talking about this as a CEO, because I can't be arm waving and saying that. But once we actually have sensitivity tables, people can do the math themselves.
You'd be surprised how many CEOs come in here and wave arms. Let's get.
Well, I'm waving my arms too, but nonetheless.
In a sensible way. Look, you talk about sort of valuations of some of these peers that compared to yourself, and I think you reference in your marketing material, the potential $10 per ounce, less than $10 per ounce. So why does that matter for people to understand that number? Where are you in comparison to your peers? 75 million market cap today, enterprise level. A bit more than that. So what should they be looking at? How should they be valuing you? And why does 2025 look good for you and them?
Yeah, well, in our marketing material, we do have some of our peers. And, I think if you look at the average price of other projects that have similar scale of resources, even maybe similar grade, you're looking $30 to $50 per ounce, even in this market where they aren't getting love, and we're trading at less than 10. Some of our Yukon peers that have similar styles of deposits, $100 per ounce. I think it is a metric where you can show that if you've got a project that's economic and people take a look at, you have the opportunity to re-rate. We were particularly hit hard June 24th last year. It took 50% off our share price. And we've been working on recovering. That wasn't related to us. But I think that is the kind of project, the kind of stock that I look for in my investment portfolio, where there's an opportunity for it to re-rate just because of an external factor resolving, as well as the gold price. So I think we've got three things that are going for us. One, that situation's resolving, perception's resolving. Two, it's our own project perception changing with the drilling that we've done, showing that there's some higher grade cores within this that are really going to be key to driving the economics. And then there's the gold price. What does that do generally for this sector and people starting to pay attention to these companies? So, I think those three things together make us a pretty strong opportunity to re-rate. And we've got a really solid plan this year. I've never been more confident in the geology that we've put together, our team, our plan for this year. Yeah, we've got some options, and that's a great thing to have options. I think we plan to deliver again this year, just like we did last year. Like, we had one of our strongest technical years last year. The market didn't appreciate it, but I think that this year we'll start to get some recognition for it.
Yeah, no, I think that the fundamentals outweigh perhaps what the market was rewarding you with. One last question. Do you feel this is a new story now?
Our history's been pretty successful, but I think we are in an opportunity where we can get to that scale where, yeah, it is a new story. It will hit some new radar screens because of what we've done this year in showing that grade profile. So, yeah, I think it's time to look at Banyan again. We've got a lot of positive news flow that's coming, and I think we've done a great job to show that this project isn't what people thought it was before.